3, 2, 1.
In Los Angeles right now as an art major, as an artist.
The vast majority of people, Las Vegas, is almost like the opposite end of what you'd expect contemporary fine art to be. You know, everything that's kind of mass-produced, but it actually has an art scene, and it's quite different from other cities, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, we've had how do I word it? Starts and stops, I guess, to our scene, and a lot of people who came through, let's say, grad school on Dave and Libby's watch have gone on. Most of them are living elsewhere, but there is a tight group that's still here, and it's a great place to make art for sure. And the cost of living is you can make a go at it. You can have a space like this, for instance.
Yeah, this is amazing. It's an incredible space.
It's. Yeah. I'm very happy. Every day I kind of pinch myself because right before this I was working in the backyard, and in Vegas that's not a good thing. I don't know what I was thinking other than I was poor. But
when I look at the works that you're producing now and thinking about where you've come from in terms of your own practice, what you're producing now is actually very abstract. There is a kind of a wave of abstraction, I think, that's happening in America at this moment in time. Is that how you see it? And do you see
I
work
felt
fitting into that?
I actually thought that there was more of a resurgence of like figurative, even though they do feel non-representational and abstracted, but it's so I guess it's probably just this day and age, where we handle information and patterns and interpret them unlike previous generations, and I'm on the tail end of that. But I always felt like my work, once I started getting onto the non-representational stuff, was fueled by, in the same way as music. I was grew up on music, still a music lover. If I could play an instrument worth a damn or sing, I'd probably be doing that.
Yeah.
But here I am. But I do think with that, let's say that's my my guide or whatever, then I think these pieces make more sense. They feel like little compact pop songs or whatever, which I don't know if that's cliche or not, but they do, and I think I've trained myself to the patterns make sense when they're in short little bursts like that, and so I do think there's something to it, even though I can't quite articulate it.
I think what it is with your work, they are very compositional.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that, and it's funny because having just spoken to Tim Babington as well,
right,
about his work, I think that the work that you both produce is very different, but there I think is a definite kind of shared interest that you both have.
Mm-hmm.
In that in talking to Tim, I was saying that his work is very very much like pop music.
Yeah, they feel reduced to a point where they don't feel like opera, let's say. Like they're not, as much as I want to make this, epic piece. I've had my runs at it, or I've done a couple that are larger in scale, and even some that I'm proud of. But I feel like these come out more whenever I'm designing. They're these little blips or nuggets or songs, whatever, But they do feel like they harness a certain amount of information, patterning, whatever you want to call it, that I'm familiar with dealing with, and so that's the only reason I brought up those songs. But I love Tim and I do get paired up a lot, and you know, it works out great for me. I love his work.
Yeah. When I see it works, they're very recognizably yours, which is interesting. You know, you're saying that you originally started off kind of, you know, taking from
riffing on.
Yeah.
There was Beckman in there. There was other ones, but
but then what you've developed is very definitely a very recognizable practice. If you were to give advice to a student about an art student about developing their practice, what would you say about developing their own kind of voice?
I don't know, because I stumbled upon mine.
Yeah.
But maybe that's it. Maybe you try to get in uncharted territory, and so that's a good point, because it was at that moment, I guess, whenever I did get onto the beginnings of this work, where I had peers, I had friends like, yeah, do more of that, you know, less of this, more of that. It was that easy. So I think if you do have people you trust, if it's not yourself, because sometimes you're so invested, it's hard to know, is this brilliant? I always leave the studio with something new, thinking I'm a genius, and then I come back the next morning like, I'm still an idiot, you know, damn it. But it's nice when you do impress, you know, those people that you respect, and I guess that would be my advice: is make mistakes, especially while you're in school, and then continue to make them even in your studio, whether you show people or not. But it's so important. That's how you find something new. That's how we evolved as humans. You know, it's mutating from that lineage. And so, you know, while like my work, for instance, is in a lineage that, but it's great to hear that you think they're recognizable as.
But there's that use of an industrial manufacturing kind of process. Yeah,
like a remove. There's a distance to it. Well, my hand comes into these like initially when I'm making the design. So you'll see that embedded into the work, but it's done by a machine. It's you know, filtered through the mouse to the computer. Those files are then emailed to a laser cutter, or for the some, or a water jet, or some CNC machine that follows my line that I created. You know, to a staggering degree of precision. But that's the human element filtered through the machines, let's say, and that's another layer, I guess, that interests me, because I think that's where we're headed anyways.
So the role of the machine in the production of your work, does that have a kind of a critical, is there sort of a meta-critique that's happening there around technology?
I've just come to terms with that, or just started embracing that. So this last show, for instance, at Mark Moore Gallery, it was an experimental show, but dealing with that for me. Some other things, new materials and so forth, but specifically letting the hand of the machine show, I guess. So some of the edges, which I can show you later, but I used Cell-Tech, which is basically Sintra. It's an expanded PVC sheet that the jet leaves an amazing looking trail or edge, you know, to it. It's this kind of sawtooth finish that I think you can tell that it was machine cut and not, you know, me doing it, but which is great. The work before, I would erase signs of that, and I would sand the edges where they were laser cut. It leaves a burnt edge. You can see all of those stacks over there are pieces that need to be done, or I hope to one day do. And so, and I wasn't that fond of that edge, you know, that charred, but I did love the precision that the laser could give me. So to make those, I go back and sand each piece quite a few times and handle each part. So it's very labor intensive. So to broaden to refine my philosophy on the work, it's actually going to save me time if I feel like it's working, and I do right now. I'm pretty excited about it.
I mean, it seems to me that there is a constant tension between the markings of the hand, in actually plotting out the shapes, as you do with the mouse.
Mm-hmm.
And we were saying earlier about how then that process in itself of using the mouse leaves its own mark, and then the actual manufacture of the pieces through that industrial process leaves a mark as well. So there's a tension there, I think.
I think so too.
The human.
Excuse me. Yeah, but I feel like that's where we're headed as humans.
Yeah.
I think we're becoming more cyborg. We're going to enter, like in the beginning of the interview, I mentioned the revolution in fabrication, and it's here. We're on the cusp of it, and pretty soon things will scale down in price that I could have all of those things I described here in the studio, and it's like hit a button and I'll drive a car home that I just doodled on the computer. How great would that be? And then drive a different one back. Not that I want to keep making stuff, but responsibly doodle a car and then drive it around, and it will be, that collaboration with the technology that will allow that to happen. But it'll also be limitless, expression. Like right now, we rely on Honda or I forget the name of the car. Holden.
Yes.
We rely on them to give us our expression when it comes to those things, I guess. There's other factors in there, I know I'm kind of glossing over, but wouldn't that be great if we could draw your own, even if it's a crappy drawing, which that's what I want, a horrible doodle of a car. Yeah.
We all used to be receivers, and now many of us are receivers and producers.
Right. Yeah, it
create
seems
and receive. Yeah.
Seems like everything is changing to that, with the computer, with, for instance, I mentioned my nephew's here in town. Like he doesn't watch TV in the same way that I do, because he's got YouTube that he can interact with in a different way, upload stuff and view stuff. So I don't know, it feels like, and then you comment on it, and some of that interaction is the most brilliant stuff I've ever seen. So I'm excited though about that freedom that I feel like the work has taken on because of that. Not to mention, it's better when I get out of the way of the design and of the work. Otherwise, I'll polish it down to where it's not posing a question anymore. And I've had that where I'll put up a show or a body of work, and it's everyone's like, "Yep, it's almost overly resolved." So I feel like I'm chasing that curve. I feel like I'm getting back to a point where it's given me freedom to just let things happen in that collaboration that's unintended, unexpected, and being excited about it,
I suppose you're waiting, it's almost like you're waiting for the glitch.
Yeah.
You're waiting for the point where it actually does fall down. There is the glitch. There is the mistake in the technology.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I was mentioning before. Whenever I felt like I got too familiar with Illustrator, now I've got a new version that I can figure out, and I'm leaving more glitches in there. But I even had a show in Santa Fe a year or two ago called Glitches and Fixes, because it was about forcing the software to do things that created these mistakes, and then I come back and decide, let's put these back together, that's working good, or so.
And again, it's that interesting tension between having the automated part of the process, the machinery part, the software part, do things that are either automated or are a mistake, and then you then applying some sort of aesthetic decision on what you choose to then include. Again, it's that tension between sort of the human and the technology.
Really is, and I think what you were hinting at, like in the design phase, nobody dies, nobody gets hurt, and then I send those files off. But in the process of having them cut, there were times, like recently, I was working with this art fabricator out in LA, and I got to witness the water jet at work, and it was fascinating because I found out that some of those glitches where I'd push Illustrator really far, AutoCAD, which is pretty much the industry standard for CNC production and so forth, fabrication, they don't necessarily jive together. So you have to make approximations, or you have to fix it. Like AutoCAD is very specific. So it would get to a decision that Illustrator made based on my drawing, and then just take off. For one shape, it just cut it in half, and it was a big shape, and it was a bummer. But at the same time, I was really excited that, wow, okay, so I can kind of fuck with the design that will cause this to happen. It messes with the machine, and I don't know if I could tell Ron out in LA that, but I would love to just put in this file and see what happens, knowing that it's gonna freak out.
It's almost like the 21st century version of that Duchampian idea of randomness and indeterminacy, and he produced that work, which was the large glass work that ended up getting broken and has the shatter marks in it. And when that happened, he was like, well, great, there was a random element.
Right. So I guess thanks to Duchamp for freeing us all.